There's like big board game boxes.
You can do whatever you want. Neeber did the introduction last week. You've got a couple of seconds to figure something out now. Yeah, I'll give you your beat.
Can you do a
Boots and
sound?
cats and boots and cats. Go on, give me something.
Can't do it. It's too funny. Big board game boxes. Big board game. I like them big board game boxes. Big board game boxes.
Oh, God. This box has got a dump truck of an ass. Wait, I think I've gotten a bit off the track here. Sorry.
I don't know, it's kind of on brand.
Seems appropriate.
That's certainly how we start usually.
I mean, considering last week how we started talking about box curse at the start of the podcast. Yeah,
Isn't that the intro? We just gave you a perfect.
We just gave you a perfect segue.
Lots of laughter and
No, that's gonna be before the music. Before the, like, you know, when I do the fade in, it's like, oh, I can hear the music now. Show me. That's what that'll probably be. And with that, welcome to the Board Game Gateway Podcast, episode number 28. My name is Neeber, and I am your host for this evening. And sitting around the table, I have three lovely gentlemen. To my directly in front, I have Mr. Ralph.
Hi, everyone.
To my front left, I have Matt.
G'day.
And sitting right to my left, we have special guest Damien. Welcome, sir.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Ooh, wow! Like, you see that? He's got pitch and everything, guys.
Yeah.
You guys are a bit monotone. I need you guys to
He's still excited. He's young.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, do it again then. We'll give you some more pitch in our introduction.
I was confused by the introduction. Sitting to my right, to my left, I was like,
Yeah.
What's going on there, Nick?
All right, so this is take two. Here we go.
Yeah.
It's not the official. It's like, I'm not going to cut this. This is all going to be on the podcast.
Oh, I know.
Okay, cool.
We're aware of how
All
you
right,
do
good.
things.
Good. All right, cool. All right. To my front is Ralph.
Hi, everyone.
To my front left is Matt.
Hello.
And then to my
Well, he fucked it up. I'm not going to give him my gold if he can't even get it right.
if this is the first time that you're tuning into the Board Game Gateway podcast, this is actually a podcast about board games.
Yeah, that's right.
If you didn't realise, we are your entryway into the world of board gaming, tabletop gaming, and fun times. Apparently, as you can hear around the microphones
Most
tonight,
of the fun times.
we're in a little bit of a crazy mood this morning. Partially because we're all trying
This
to.
morning, Jesus Christ.
He's all
man.
over
Where
the
are
place.
It's been a long. Do you actually want me to officially restart this podcast? Because I'll turn
please.
this. I will turn this bus
we? It can
around.
only get better, surely, right?
That's it.
Real people, real mistakes. That's what we're...
That's it. That's it. Back to Winnipeg, wherever we go. We're going to be having a chat about a couple of games tonight. We're going to be having a chat about Dune Imperium. We're going to be having a chat about Marvel Champions, again, for the second time on this podcast, but Damien would really like to have a bit of a chat about it, so we're going to do that. And we're also going to have a chat about our Gateway Game of the Week this week, which is 6 Nimmt. If you are watching this on YouTube, we have the chapters now down in the bar down below us, so you can actually go there and skip to the part if you skip to those game discussions if you want to.
You can even skip back to the start if you like.
Oh, I wouldn't. I think that you'd be crazy to do that.
That's the best bit.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, that's saying a lot for the rest of this podcast, then, isn't it?
Let's just stop it here. Let's just record introductions all night.
Yes, that's right. We now have chapters on all of our YouTube videos, so if you'd like to watch it on there, you can go and skip through the bits. Look, I want to start tonight by a bit of an apology. In previous podcasts, I have been a bit... I've been a bit down on Dune Imperium as a game. I've said it's boring. It didn't really hook me. I thought it was trying to be... not a lot of everything, and I have to admit that I played it on Friday night. We held a Discord meetup on the Board Game Gateway Discord channel, and one of our members, Imran, came in, and he retaught me Dune Imperium.
So I have a question about that, because I know you played the first expansion. Did you play the newest expansion in that as well?
We actually played with both expansions.
Okay.
We played with the Immortality expansion, and we played with the Rise of
Immortality is only just starting to come out now,
Yes.
I believe. How was it?
It was really good. I have to, and this is why I want to apologize to it, which is the game itself, if you've never played it, it's a worker placement game that has card drafting mechanics built into it, and deck building into it. And when I first played it, I felt like I didn't get enough deck building, and I didn't feel like the worker placement was fun. And I came out of it going, like a really big meh. We played it, and the expansions have really added some new modules. They've added in like fixes to the spaces that people thought were that they thought was unbalanced. and I really enjoyed it. I actually really enjoyed this game. I didn't win. I was really close to actually winning. I nearly surprised Imran. He was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you nearly won that." Because I was like, "Oh, I'm not that bad."
Have you played this one, Damien?
I haven't played the expansion. I've played Dune Imperium a couple of times. And one thing that I do know about it is that it is definitely the sort of game where it has whatever the opposite of runaway leader is.
Yeah.
I tend to see in it that in my games of it, you'll typically have a few people who will be really, really close. And then there'll be this crescendo in the last round. And every game I've played of it, no one's actually 1 on 10. You'll often have 3 people who will be like 12, 11, and 10. Or 13, 11, and 10. Great game. Very, very good game.
Yeah, our score ended up being 11-8, and he got to 11 because he stole. And I was on 8 because he stole a couple of tokens off me in the very last round. So it was like
the family associations.
Yeah, there was a couple of things like that. So the game itself, if you've never played Dune Imperium, to give you a kind of a brief overview, we're not going to go into it because we've got too much because we've got other things that we want to talk about. But essentially, if you've read the books or watched the movie of the Dune, you enjoy that world. You've got a really good theme here going on. Like you're trying to impress 4 of the houses: the Bene Gesserit, the Spacing Guild, the Emperor, and the Fremen, the Fremen.
See, I haven't read the books or watched the movie, so I know them as the water people, the Dune people.
Outs.
But hey, I love the game. It's a fantastic game.
Yeah, it is a really good game. So you're trying to influence, you're trying to do actions for these groups so that you can become more influential with them. At the same time, you're also then every turn you go to battle with each other. So like a battle comes up and you can then choose to commit people and not commit people. You have a bit of deck building going on, so you're trying to figure out what do you want to kind of focus on. And I felt like that element just really didn't hit with me the first time that I played Dune Imperium. Now I felt like, especially with the new Immortality science track, how there's a whole bunch more chances for comboing, which we never had, which is for me one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
Ralph, you've played this one as well.
Yeah.
I know the Immortality expansion is really new, but
Yeah, I haven't played with Immortality, but I have played with the first expansion for it, which changed the way the actual spice was used, which is the most valuable resource in this game. Yeah. But even before I jumped into the expansion, any game that takes an hour, that's just a race to 10 points, I'm in. Like, it's just a simple premise. The cards are really interesting. Like if you have a card with like a certain symbol on it, like a green triangle, that means you can place a worker only in the green triangle places. So the cards, you can use the cards for multiple things. You can either do that or save it for your end of round reveal, which was quite fun. It's actually the same designer as Clank.
Yeah.
So you draw those 5 cards and you do what you can with them. So they combo similarly, and I really like this game. I want to play more of it. It's the perfect like Thursday night game for me.
Yeah, it is really good. I will say this does have the caveat of saying that this game really does shine once you get the expansion in. And that's not great for people who've never played Dune Imperium, and if you don't know that you're going to like this game. Because that's what happened to me. I played the first game, and everyone's like, oh, no, you're going to play it with the expansion. It fixes everything, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but that's not great when I want to play a game.
Yeah.
Like, if the initial game is not hooking me, I really hope that if they ever do, like, a second edition of this game, they just package Rise of Ix right into the base game at minimum, because I
It's interesting that you didn't play this game a fortnight ago, because this would have tied perfectly into the conversation
of
about
expansions. I realized that, and when I was playing this, I'm like, this is actually one of those games that, like, it is true. This expansion really does fix the game. It does make me very hesitant, though, still to buy the game.
But it's saying that, like, I've got this game, but I don't have the expansion.
Yeah.
I'm still going to get it out on the table.
Oh,
like,
look, yeah,
it's still an enjoyable time.
I mean, you also can't dismiss as well that as considering the price point of certain games in the hobby as well, it's at a very, very good price point. This is a $60 game.
I think I got it on the used
$60
market.
Australian is really good.
It's really good for the game. For the amount of game you get for $60, whether the expansion is required or not, that's totally up for debate. I liked it without, but again, I can appreciate the expansion would absolutely provide more. You can't deny $60 for a medium weight game of this sort of quality.
Yeah, I got it on the used market for even less than that, so I was pretty happy with it.
Yeah.
I will say, to finalise this one up a little bit, which is, I do agree, though, that from a thematic standpoint, it hits the nail on the head.
Yeah.
I literally think it is the perfect sort of... I have not played the actual Dune board game yet, which also looks really good thematically, but from the way that you use your agents and your deck building to block each other and to do all that stuff, I think that it's really good.
And just solo wise, still kills. Does really well solo.
Really?
Yeah,
I've got to try it.
it's got an app as well, and it's really good.
Awesome. Okay, well, with that, that will wrap up my apologies to Dune Imperium. I do want to talk about this at a later date after I've played it a bit more, I think, and actually give it a proper rundown on the podcast. So we'll talk about that later. Before we get into our next game, however, I do want to go through some feedback that we've actually received. You'll note that we promise you that Blake and Matt do like each other, and they will be coming back into the podcast at some point.
Who's Blake?
Don't start that. He's very sensitive about it. You'll make him cry.
It's been almost a year. Well, it's been all of this year.
Well, all of this year, that's true. But Blake, one of Blake's friends, sent him some comments/review of the podcast, and I thought it would be appropriate to share it on the podcast with you all now. So, to start with, we'll start with the first comment. He said, "Look, Matt fell from my number one host a few eps back, but he's now down at number 4 due to his distaste towards cats." So you were
the game or the animal? Because I hate both.
The musical. The musical.
Oh, the musical?
Yeah.
Surely everyone hates that, right? There's no debate there.
So, Matt, you were number 1, but apparently now you're number 4. But, only for one person.
I need to know if he means the game or the actual animal.
But you said it doesn't matter.
No, it might matter to him.
All right, maybe. Maybe.
And then it would matter whether I give a shit if I fall down his rankings.
Look,
if it's the game, well, that's a bit harsh.
Look, this is
but animals, no, I don't want to be at the top of no cat lovers rankings. Stuff that. I'll go down to 5th and climb my way back to 4th.
Well, look, out of a sample size of 1, you're currently in 4th position. All right, here we go. All right, we'll move on to his second point, which he said, "You made me super keen to play that Ark Nova Zoo game you talk about." So Ralph and Blake having some very good influence on some people there. That means probably making them spend some more money. We don't apologise about that.
Not at all.
He did go on to say though, fuck Blood on the Clock Tower, Ralph.
Yeah.
He don't like that game.
I would like you to read my response to that one as well.
I don't have it here, but I'll have to go to the Facebook.
Okay.
I'm sure Ralph can give it to you verbatim.
Definitely. I think I said to him was I too wish Blood on the Clock Tower had a hole in it.
And now moving on. Oh God!
Hold on. You've got my copy of Blood on
Yeah,
the Clock
I do.
Tower at the moment.
Do you want it back?
I don't know.
Not anymore.
He said, following on,
He still has the piece he cut out.
that is
A
true.
special character.
He goes, Anthony remains a neutral number 2 slot now. And I'm like,
Is he talking about you or my cousin that we had on?
look,
Mate, if guest Anthony is at number 2, we all have a lot of work to do. Not that Anthony was bad, but come on.
I want to know what a neutral number 2
He didn't even get his
means.
introduction right.
I want to know what neutral number 2 means, because I'm not like a solid number 2, or I'm not like I'm failing. I'm neutral 2.
I think he means a begrudging number 2.
Yeah, probably.
It's like the ladder's there, but the round isn't quite over yet.
Does that mean that you were 3 and you've shuffled up? Is like how it works?
I don't know. I mean, maybe. I mean, look.
Or has he just left the number 1 spot empty?
Oh well, look.
We need more detail, okay? It's keeping me up at night.
If he's listening to this, he needs to go and put us a comment in the next Facebook post that we have. So I just want to give some fun comments. If you want to have your comments read out as well, feel free to put them on the Facebook post. We will actually be.
And I apologise to Anthony, Ralph's cousin, because I did enjoy having him here. I wasn't trying to.
Oh yeah, he loved it too. It was good fun.
It was great. All right, we're gonna move on.
Actually, just on that, he's getting his Briscoe trophy this weekend at the old Marconi Club.
Does that mean he has to go and fight for the right?
He
to
does,
party?
but I don't.
Surely you've got to go and film that, right? Like that's got to be.
I think he's going to be. You know how they do their monthly newsletter. I think he's going to be in a photo or something.
We interviewed
but,
that guy.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. That's our article. There's quoting our podcast in the article.
That would be great. Okay, so sitting at the table with us, we've got our friend Damien, or Damo, as we like to call him, and I've known you not as long as Ralph, but Damo, for the people listening at home who don't know who you are, please give them a little bit of a wrap of where we met, how you know us all, and then we'll ask you some questions. We're sorry to put you on the spot.
I like how you say, Damo is what you guys call me. I've played many games with you guys. You've called me many other things.
Well, look,
That's true. That's true. But for the record, he's correct.
look, I don't like to count the expletives that I've called you, especially when you're playing me in a game of bus and you're stopping me from delivering those damn workers to their place. But
That was a good game of bus.
That was a good game of bus. But tell everyone out there, how you know us, what games are some of your favorites, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So as Nee said, my name's Damien. I've been playing board games for quite a while actually now, quite a few years now, and met you guys through the hobby, but specifically met you guys sort of early after the first lockdown, I think it was, here in Sydney. And the goal was to try and build up a community, to try to meet like-minded people who wanted to play board games. Thankfully, I've always had a really good, close-knit family who were keen to play games, but they weren't so keen to play the variety of games that I wanted to play, particularly some of the heavier things.
Been there. We've all been there, I think.
So met Ralph through... It was just a Facebook post.
Yeah, I think
that's all it was.
I can't remember if it was yourself or Reese that started the MacArthur board game.
Yeah,
But I jumped in on that fairly early as well.
I know Reese and I were trying to start up something at the same time. I'm going to say that he pipped me.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure he did. And full credit to the guy, and thank him every day for
It's
doing
a great
it.
initiative,
It's a great initiative. It's a fantastic group. But yeah, I reached out, and then Ralph responded. And then invited me around to his place.
I think because I remember browsing the secondhand market a lot, and like specifically the local ones, and I'm like, this Damien guy is always stealing the games I want to buy. What's he doing? So of course I invited him over.
So I will say, just so the viewers know, the reason why that happens is because I start work extremely early, and if you guys want to snipe stuff on the Facebook market, you got to get in early. But yeah, that's kind of how it all started. Ralph and I then started to catch up regularly. We were catching up weekly at that point.
Especially because we live like 10 minutes away from each other.
So we're playing Roll for the Galaxy for a little bit.
Clank early on.
Clank a fair bit. So just an array of different games. And then through Ralph, met you, Nee. And you came around to one of our MacArthur Board Gamer events.
Yep, yeah, I did. You introduced me to Blitzkrieg on the opening night.
So Trial by Fire, where I stomped you in a game.
You did.
And you smiled the entire time.
Yep, I did.
It's like, respect the play, respect the
play. hate the game. Hate the game, not the play. You know?
But no. Look, in all seriousness, it was a great evening, because it was actually one of the few we had. Unfortunately, not many people turn up. But it was a good chance to get to know Nee, and then
I invited you and Ralph around to my house about a month and a half later for that year's GooverCon.
Yeah.
And honestly, I didn't know if you guys would rock up, and you did. And you just kind of got trial by fire with my family. You just like rocked up, like, yep, let's go.
And like, we got Blood Rage going, and there was like people were looking over, like, this game looks like a big box game.
Yeah. And that's where you guys met Blake, and then also Matt was there that day, and that's where you met Matt as well.
That's right.
At GooverCon. So
that's a very different trial by fire, though. When you're being introduced to one game, that's scary. But when you're being introduced to 50 people inside a house all playing games, that's very
and this is the thing. Is just that is my world. I come from a very, very large Portuguese family, and so when we get together, there'll be 40 people, and and we'll have bags with board games. Most of them pretty much all mine.
See,
yeah.
I found that night when I went into the MacArthur Board Gamers meetup, I was more nervous than I would have been if I was going into a big family meetup, because I knew that meetup was going to be relatively small, because I saw that there weren't many people going.
Yeah.
And so when I walked in, I was like legit super nervous, going, I hope I'm not.
When you go in to do a big family thing, all right, cool, aunts and uncles, nonnas, and
there's going to be at least one person I get along with. I think
I'll figure this out. But when you go to a board game meetup, you're like, you guys are serious. They know shit. Yeah, I gotta be on my A game for this.
No. It wasn't actually about.
That'll be my attitude. Like, okay, great.
It was actually about that for me. It was more about, I was just like, I hope I get along with these guys, because I want to play some more board games. And you were very welcoming, and I'm sure that that's why myself and even Ralph, I'm sure that's why we invited you over to our houses, because we're like, this dude is actually really cool. And
yeah, we just like playing games and spending time with each other, really.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
I was trying to say, what's one of the first board games you played, Damien, that actually got you into the hobby?
Good question.
Okay, so first, growing up, the typical board gaming tropes: Monopoly, always buy orange, always buy orange. Bow Street is key.
Well, at least he's got a strat. Better than my pop strat. It's like go to Brown Town. Just buy the front two, and like he's legitimately won the game.
Other than that, card games were a very, very big one. Actually found out via Ralph that Briscola is actually is a sister game to a Portuguese game called Bishka. But as we were talking about it, some of the scoring rules are flipped around because I believe, anyway, historically, the game was invented around the time when the Spanish Queen was around. Typically, that's why a lot of the older Spanish and Portuguese games, the queens are actually valued higher than kings.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So, but otherwise, it was an identical game. So prior to being in IT, I used to be in construction, and every time it rained, we would play cards.
He works in IT. He still does that when it rains.
Still that. So we'd play games like Briscola Casino, which is another fantastic sort of climbing game. 500 Hearts, Euchre.
You can see where your love for card games comes from.
Absolutely.
It looks like a lot of your early games were all around those.
Absolutely. So it was around that. But the game that really kind of clicked for me and then really led me down sort of like this crazy rabbit hole was Concordia. That is still one of my favorite games. Will likely remain one of my favorite games forever. Just if nothing else, for sentimental value.
I want to play more of that. It's just been sitting on the shelf for a while, and I'm like, I need to play more of that game.
So very
we do have a Let's Play of that on our YouTube channel with actually your teach. You were teaching us. It was me, myself, Blake, Ralph was there, and one other player was there as well.
Jeremy,
and we played 5 games. So that's on our YouTube channel as well. So if you want to see that game, I really enjoyed it.
So it was that. I remember I played that two-handed, taught myself how to play, and I went, okay, this is pretty fantastic. And after that,
it's just exploded from there.
I'm not going to say how many games I've
No, we don't say that here. We wouldn't ask you that question.
I mean, it's just rude.
Just give us a dollar figure.
Let's not. Just on the off chance that that family member or my wife happens to
or the bank hear about it.
Yeah.
Look, it's not any of my business. But if I was an insurance company, how much would I have to pay out if you had a fire in that room?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I do want to say though, David, you've opened up my world to a lot of the heavier games in which we establish what they are. But I do want to say the highlight for me over the last couple of years to me was John's Company.
Yep. So yeah,
because that is a game I probably still won't buy on my own because I can't teach it. I know it's not in me to teach that game, but my God, I love playing that game.
Yeah. So for the listeners, John Company is definitely a heavier game.
Yeah, definitely.
It is. I think the best analogy I've sort of come up for it is it's TI, but instead of spaceships, you are families who play a part in the British East India Company.
It is fantastic.
It is a semi-co-op game. So what that means is you are working cooperatively with everyone at the table, but there can only be one winner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that hurts.
The premise of the game is to make money, to then convert that money into prestige. And its prestige in the end is what actually is worth anything. It is cutthroat. It is about deal making, deal breaking. It is about knowing who you can trust at the table. It is about looking your friend dead in the eye and say, here's £10. Give me everything I want, and I promise you I will look after you at the end. And then you just don't.
Sounds like that game, man. That's exactly that
I'd say
sounds
so.
like Georgie's game.
The last game I played it with my wife. And in this game, there's a company, and you buy shares in the company. The company will get paid out. Turns out
I could already see where
I was the majority shareholder, and my wife was in the position where she can tank the company, and Ralph's definitely losing this game, and so she did that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I got to admit,
I just said this sounds like a type of game that Georgie would like because she's a spiteful bitch as well.
They'll get along.
Sorry, did I say that out loud?
She doesn't listen to this podcast. You're in the clear.
Yeah, Tina does.
But I also have another formal apology to actually Damien.
Oh, what do I do?
No, it's something else.
What did Ralph do?
Well, to be fair, you did this to yourself as well. But
What did Damien do?
Matt, what did you do?
I'm sorry. I had to call your wife a bitch 4 seconds ago.
Well, firstly, the apology. You should apologise to Tina and Georgie.
I sent Tina a text. Don't worry.
All right, no worries. She'll probably ignore you on the streets of Campbelltown again. But anyways, the formal apology to Damien is, I'm sorry, Damien, for throwing you into a 7-player TI game with every single expansion for your very first game.
Ouch.
That was a rough day.
Just so everyone knows, it was around the 6.5 hour mark that I realised I could reorder my tokens to increase my fleet size.
That's a hard one.
But still, ever since that, been a great game. But I'm really
great.
sorry about that time.
It's been great.
Did you win?
No. I didn't come last, but I did not
That's
win.
all that matters.
Yeah. I did go get dinner for the following night and then came back and then completed a round of war over the phone.
Because all 6 of us were at the table, we're like, should we wait for him to come back? It's only 10 minutes away, and we waited 10 minutes. He's not coming back, is he?
He's gone.
He's gone.
Okay, from that, let's get
awesome.
All right, from that, let's get into talking about some games.
Sounds great.
All right, we're going to move on now to our guest Damien, and he wants to have a chat about Marvel Champions. We've had a chat about this really early on in the podcast days. I think like episode 2 or 3 we talked about it. It was really early on in the days. But Damien, you have started playing a lot more of Marvel Champions in between your games of Frosthaven. I hear with Ralph. So why is this game taking your fancy once again for Marvel Champions?
Kind of Marvel Champions is a weird one. For me, because I actually purchased the game very, very early on.
It was just the base set at the time.
It was just the base set at the time.
Quite a while ago.
And played it, mostly played solo because I couldn't convince my son, who is my primary gaming partner, to play it. He was not interested in deck construction. Fast forward a few years, and lo and behold, he's into TCGs and such, and I think, let's try Marvel Champions again. So Ralph was kind enough to loan us his copy, and within 24 hours, there are a series of decks on our gaming table, and my son is putting together brand new decks.
Right.
Oh, fantastic.
So that has been kind of our world for the last few days.
Oh, that's great.
So Marvel Champions, as Ralph will certainly be able to speak to far better than what I can, is a co-op TCG where every single player will...
What's TCG?
Trading card
game. Actually, it's not a TCG because you don't trade the cards.
It's a living card game.
Or a collectible card game.
Not living card game, because they change the rules all the time. They haven't
Really?
got it right. Yeah, there's so many updates online.
All right, so it's an LCG. Apologies.
They want that money.
Of course they want that money. So basically, you take on a hero in its simplest form. Every single pack will have either a hero or a scenario pack where you fight against a particular villain. But you take control of a hero, you and up to 4 players all up, and you basically have to defeat a villain. The villains will attack you, they will thwart, you have to thwart their schemes, so they will try and generate these schemes and complete their schemes, which is more often than not the way that we end up losing these games. It's one thing I really love about the game, beyond the co-op element of it, is the escalation of the game. It always feels like the villain escalates that little bit faster than you. You always feel like that you need to be that little bit smarter to try and defeat the villain. I've never had a game of it where I felt like we just absolutely obliterated the villain, particularly at 2 players.
You can't really do that, what I found with the starter decks.
Yeah.
That's where you really need to get into the deck construction of it, where you start looking at, because there's 4 different aspects in each deck. So you have your character cards. So if you're Iron Man, you get all the Iron Man cards. Yeah. But then you want to pick, do you want to go aggression, which is hit the bad guy as hard and quick as you can? Do you want to go justice, which is trying to thwart their side scheme? So you have Rhino attacking New York, but he's also trying to break into the bank. How do you deal with that. Justice is a good way to deal with that. Protection, which is all about trying to soak that damage while yourself or other players can like build up their combos. And what was the last one again? Leadership. The blue card. So leadership is where it's really fun because you start to make your own little team of Avengers and like other little allies that come out to help fight. So it opens up a lot more options.
Was your son a big Marvel fan before?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Which is why originally I thought it would be a great hook for him. But at the time, he just wasn't there yet. Like he's always been a fan of chess. He's always been a fan of playing different Euros with me. I'm very, very lucky that I have a 12-year-old at home who I can grab Vital Lacerda games and put it on the table and he will play. And more often than not, beat me. It's a really good way to get good at games is to have your kids beat you at them.
Perfect.
It's fantastic.
Because you know that they will be brutal. They will just pile in like, oh, you suck, Dad.
Oh. But it's also a good opportunity to get the angst out of, all right, I've got 4 years of I didn't smack you, but I wanted to.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to lay this last card down and you will lose and I will feel so vindicated.
Yes. Yeah.
My kid smacks me.
See, it's funny because we have 3 fathers around this table and Ralph, the newly to be father, he doesn't get it yet, but he will.
Oh, he's going to.
He will.
I'm excited for
Yeah,
that.
he's Italian. He'll smack his kids.
We're doing parenting classes. That hasn't come across yet. That one, so.
No, there'll be a torn section in the textbook, though. Don't worry.
Oh.
It used to be in there.
Yeah.
So,
if not physically, with the age-old European guilt.
Yeah, that's right.
So, Damien, what villains have you gone up against?
So far, we have played Rhino. We have Krang. Kang?
Kang.
Kang.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kang is one of my favorite ones.
Yeah. We have Kang set up on the table. So before I came here tonight, Kang was set up on the table.
Yeah.
But the thing I'm really enjoying are the heroes and just how different every deck is. So, for instance, Iron Man comes in the starter deck, and Iron Man, even though there are technically 2 aggression decks in the base set, so you have Spider-Man and Iron Man, and you'd think, yep, being an aggression, they're just going to go out and just bash stuff. It's not that easy. Iron Man's goal is to actually build up your suit. So unfortunately, there are a lot of dead terms where you feel like, I'm just trying to get all these different pieces of my suits, and then that way I can do something.
Yeah.
But once you get it going, you're putting out huge amounts of damage per turn, and that is so rewarding when you get it right.
Yeah, and then the game's over in like 3 or so turns.
Yeah.
But what I found with Iron Man is he's better at protection because he's good at like soaking that damage or stalling while you're leveling yourself up, which is really cool. Yeah.
Whereas you've got my son, his favorite character at the moment is Vision. And Vision is just such a great support class. And that kind of leads into the other thing that I really love about the game is the co-op element isn't just, I take a turn, you take a turn, we're in this together. If your opponent has an event card that may impact you, they can play that event card. If your opponent has an action on whether it be one of their minions or one of their actions associated with their hero, they can play that action to then benefit you. So while you can't show your hand, you could still say, hey, I've got this card, but I need you maybe spend one of your tokens on that action. And I think I can turn this into an 8 damage turn.
Yeah.
And go, all right, let's do it. And
Whatever
it plays out.
What I also like in that is, the villain gets a chance to attack you and you have to pick, do you want to defend it or not?
Yeah.
The other player's ally can protect for you, which is so cool.
Yeah.
With the living card game aspect of this game, do you find that... I mean, I've played Marvel Champions. I enjoy that, but I've never got into the actual deck customization side of it. Or like, what are the kind of stipulations are like those decks? Is that like you said that Iron Man can be an aggression or a defensive. Yep. Can you mix and match those cards to suit your will, or is there recommended living card game expansions?
I'm going to leave this one to you, Ralph.
Sure.
So more than me.
So when you play a deck, it's minimum 40 cards, and I believe 52 is the max. I believe. Generally, I think 15 or 16 cards is character specific. And then you pick one aspect. So there's basic cards, which are the grey picture, and they're like the run-of-the-mill, like, resources to pay for more cards, and then some other generic stuff. They're okay. But really, you want to try and find the best aspect cards for you that combo well with something else your character already does. So there's actual websites of Marvel CBD, which is people building decks, and basically you can go there, people vote on your deck, they comment, you swap cards in and out, they vote for you and everything, and you can just go there. Like I made, there's a Thor deck, and that's just like kill all the minions. There's a character called Adam Warlock, right? So you can only take one aspect, but there's this one character who's broken. He's Adam Warlock. He's like a god in, I think he's in the latest movie coming out actually. And he can take like 2 cards from each aspect or something like that. There's a deck that you can make, and I've made it online. It beats like villains on expert mode, like really easy.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous what some people have done. So it's fun. Like that kind of ruins the game if you dive into the website and just build the best possible deck. It's fun to try and build something yourself and trying to take down that villain. That's where it's rewarding.
But that's also where the sort of background in TCGs tends to come in, and a lot of that you'll find in the TCG community. So
you're building the best Magic deck.
Exactly right. So my son and I, we've played Pokemon. We're currently playing Yu-Gi-Oh as well.
I love Yu-Gi-Oh.
And that's just what it is. It's just you're trying to work out how you can maximize your deck to do something special. In most scenarios, preferably without spending a small fortune.
Yeah,
spending a small fortune part, unfortunately, is a slippery slope, and it means different things to different people.
Definitely.
But there is I can absolutely see a lot of that coming into Marvel Champions as well. And in fact, like I said, I will send a photo of it when I can, and I will show you what my table looked like before I came here.
What I think is really cool is about the deck construction side of it. Not only are you trying to build the best deck for the character, but as you get deeper into it, you're like, all right, I'm going to take down Mysterio. Then you start thinking, what's the best deck I can make to take down that specific boss? Like it becomes really interesting when you start building like that.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a lot of game in that.
Yeah, there's a lot of game there. So I think we could keep talking about this for the rest of the podcast, but I think we're going to have to move on from this one. But thank you for sharing that with us, Damien. I think that's really cool to hear that you've gotten your son, your 12-year-old son, who is basically your little minion. He's your little ally, your Spider-Man, if you will. Your Vision, sorry.
Yeah, I wouldn't say little.
But look, all right. So we talked about how this game could, run you a big, bank account, especially with all the expansions. But let's shift gears for a second. Let's talk about our gateway game of the week.
Yeah, I might hand this one to Damien actually, because this is one of the first games you taught me.
Oh yeah,
quite a few years ago now.
Wow, we're putting him on the spot. I'm
putting him on the spot.
So for those of you who know, this game is Six Nimmt, and I'm going to let Damien explain what this game is and why we picked it as our gateway game of the week.
Okay, Six Nimmt is a deck of cards from 1 to 104. The goal of the game is to play every card in your hand and pick up as few points as possible.
Nice.
When you play a card, you will play a card to one of 4 rows on a table. And typically what will happen is everyone around the table will play a card face down, and then at the same time, everyone will reveal a card. Then in numerical order, from lowest to highest, the cards get played to the table. And where they get played to the table is dependent on where the number falls within 4 different rows that are currently on the table. So every number needs to be played higher than a particular number within a row, but lower than a number in the next row. So hypothetically, if you have a 35 and an 84, and you play a 74, you'll have to play it after the 34, but before the 85. The rub with this game, though, is that once there are 5 cards on the table, whoever has to play the 6th card in a row has to pick up the whole row. And that is where the fun comes in, because
it's not fun. I hate it.
It's fun when it's not you. It's fun.
Yeah, it's always fun. Where the fun comes in is that if, like I said, it's the 6th card that picks up. But if you're playing with 5 or 6 people, it means that invariably, almost every round, a row is going to get picked up.
Yeah, it's just a minefield out there.
Yeah.
Go to our YouTube channel. You can type in @BG Gateway into YouTube. You can actually see the video right now, and you can actually see the game laid out in front of us that we're talking about at the moment. Because it can, when you talk about this game, seem a bit like it's really hard to picture what the game is.
It sounds totally naff.
It's quite a methodical game too.
Oh, it's great. And like that's it. Like you've done the full rules explanation right there, and it is a really great game and it's actually a really one that it just burns my brain here because it's literally just pick a card, play it, and hope to God that I've been able to put a card down and not get that five bull row that's going on. Like this game is called six nimped. It's also called like take 6 or row 6 in other regions of the world. So that's the idea of it. But this game also plays up to 10 players because I've never played it that much. I think I've played it at 7 on BGA before.
Damien and I both played it at 10. It's chaotic.
It's just bonkers.
I can imagine.
It's so fun. You actually the way I play at 10 players is I play a card thinking I'm going to pick up, and then somehow you don't.
Like the reason why we pick this as our board game or gateway game of the week is because it literally is as simple as pick a card and play a card. That's all the actions you have to do. Matt, we taught this game to you tonight, so you're the newbie to this game tonight. I want to get your initial thoughts on this game because you had a proper penny drop moment at some point in the game where you were like, oh no.
Well, yeah, I think as you said, the actual rules explanation is pretty simple, but the crux of it is the simultaneous reveal, and I think that's a function of this game that you don't you mention it, but that's really where the game is in that moment. In the moment of, oh crap, I don't have the right cards to be close enough to the next number. And I've got to hope that just no one goes on this line at this point in time. Which, as you said, when that first row was dealt out, like it started twigging. The second time it happened, I was like, oh, that could have been me. And that was the penny drop moment of going, oh, next time it will be me if I don't play this a little bit smarter than what I have been. Because I was literally just going, oh, that's the next number. I'll figure it out. And it got to that point of 5 in a row. I'm like, oh crap! This is dangerous territory now.
These boys got me good in the first game when just before you arrived, which was there was a moment where when you all reveal the cards, you take the lowest card first and then you put it in a row. So you're trying to play this balance of how low do I want to play this card so that I potentially can go first. But when all the rows have got like 5 cards in it, you don't want to go first. And what ended up happening was I played a card where I'm like, all right, well, I don't want to go first. So therefore, I'm going to play the biggest card, which will make me go last, which I did. However, because I went third and not second, what ended up happening was Damo took a row, which was worth like only 2 points. And then the number that was there forced me to have to go to another row, which was full of points. So I went, this sucks. That was not what I thought would happen at all. And like Damo, like you commented on my my copy because you said your copy is completely worn down comparatively. So this is one of your favorite travel games for your family and friends. I mean, what is it about the game that that creates that? Like, what do they love? Like, what do people love about this game when you take it?
So I have I will catch up with my family every couple of weeks. Fairly large family. There'll be gathering 20 plus of us, and I think it's just the fast-paced nature of the game. You could play an entire game up to 66 points in 30 minutes, and it just means that when there are kids around, and invariably something's going to happen, someone's going to fall over, something's going to get spilled. It just means that it's very easy that we can either squeeze a game in before we have to then go do a few other things, or it's the sort of game, again, because it's just a deck of cards. You can, if you need to just walk away for a second, you can. And something has to be said about a game that you can just do that. You don't have to sit at the table for an hour and a half to get enjoyment. And don't get me wrong, I have shelves full of those games and I love those games, but I would say that this game, it has, for me, it has traveled in my bag for work. So it's traveled to the States and back multiple times. It has been played in bars in the States. It's been played bars here in Sydney. It's gone camping. It's gone to picnics. It's pretty much. It's like my copy of the game. The back is all worn.
It's got stamps from every country.
So on the back, Mr. Nimp, good to see you again.
Yes.
So the backs of
You've
cards,
aged horribly.
Yeah. Honestly, these cards have my copy. It's browned around the edges and things like that. It is fantastic. It has replaced Uno as like the game.
I was going to say Matt wanted to play that earlier tonight, but I'm
Don't bring up
glad
Uno
we
around
didn't.
Matt. It's just, we don't talk about Uno with Matt.
Guarantee you there'll be a cat called Uno one day.
Just one of them.
Yeah, look, I really enjoy this game. For some reason, my mind struggles with this game really, really hard when we're in person. When I'm playing it digitally, for some reason, I'm just like, it just clicks. But when I'm like looking at it at the table, I'm like,
You're under pressure.
I have no clue what the hell I'm doing right now or why I'm losing so bad. But I do love this game. Like as you said, because it is just 101 cards, like two decks of cards, it's really cheap as well. You can get it for like less than $20 in Australia. And like you can throw away the box, literally just get a rubber band, chuck it around the deck of cards, and you don't even need the box anymore. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
I mean, Matt, what were your final impressions though of the game? Did you like it? Did you?
Yeah, I was sad that we only played 2 rounds, and then we had to start recording because I could have played that for another half hour
easily.
and finished it off. I think you're right in that it immediately had that make or break tension. That's right. Where the decisions you're making, they're not actually critical. At the same time, they could be really critical, right? And that's the fun of playing around with the family, is that it's not really important. There's no strategy that goes beyond, maybe I should go for a larger card and try and maybe screw someone else over without getting myself screwed. But even that type of strategy doesn't need to come into play to enjoy the game.
At 5 players...
I'd love to play it at 10 or higher.
But it's just chaos.
I'd love the chaos.
But even if you played at 5, there is the minute chance that everyone will play the card from the same row.
Yeah.
You saw that tonight. There was one row with 1 or 2 cards, and I went there. Then 3 of you went there, and it stuffed me up.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So even though with a 5-player game, this game does have that tension at 5 because you're like,
you know what?
I don't want to go too high, but then if I'm gonna go high, I actually want to be the highest so that someone else takes the row before I get in there. It's like
I think in looking at all of the gateway games that we've looked at over the last year or so, I think it comes down to how many moments you get in a game, right?
There's
how
a lot
many
of moments in this
That's
game.
right. How many points so you can go, oh yeah, that was a good moment. Oh, that was a good moment, right? Some games you get 2 or 3. This seemed like, oh yeah, once the ball was rolling, every hand. Was it 10 cards in your hand?
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, and it's like those moments, especially when you see that there are 3 rows. They've got 5 cards in there, and you know everyone's going to attack that 4th row because it seems reasonably safe. And then you play a card, and for instance, let's say hypothetically, you play a 74, and then the person, and then you look around the table, and someone's played a 73, and he's going, "Oh no!"
You just laugh at that one person like, "You idiot!"
of course, he was going to play a 73.
Yeah, that's his middle name.
I really do like it. It is really a great game. It's been in my collection actually for quite a long time. It doesn't get enough players, I think it does. But again, this is one of those games that just doesn't get traded because it's like because you can literally just pull it out, put it on the table, and as you said, you can come and go, right? You can play a full game to 66 points if you want, or you can just have those moments where you're just like, It
also seems like the type of game if you had a big family event where you put your hand down, someone else could just pick your hand up and just carry on, right? You don't have to.
I've had a thing where someone had to leave. We just took a random card from their hand, and that was what they played.
Oh, look, and I know you guys have spoken about this in episodes past, like pub games and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
I would put this in there as one of the best pub games out there.
I can say that, yeah.
Because you can play it on like a square bar table. You could shuffle an extra seat over, get a 5th or 2 seats, get 6 people in. And assuming that you can just get enough people around the table, the game doesn't require any additional table space.
Yeah.
That's it. It's a maximum of... You just need to allow for 4 rows of 6 cards max.
What's the minimum player count on this one? Is it 2 or 3?
The minimum, I believe, is 2.
Okay.
To be perfectly honest, I wouldn't play it with less than
I'd imagine
3.
it could be a bit dull at 2 sometimes.
Yeah, at 2, it's one of those things where you tend to not really crash into each other very much. At 3, it starts to get good, but for me, this game shines at 5.
Yeah.
That's where. So 5, 6 is the real sweet spot for this.
I can see that.
I love that moment when you all get dealt your 10 cards. And you look at them, you're like, oh, how am I going to deal with this mess? And you're like, I need to play every single one of these 10 cards? Oh, sugar. It's just, it's a fun moment, and you start stressing, and then if you can get through an entire round picking up no cards, you feel like you accomplished something.
Yeah,
great,
it's
you
one of
know?
those things. Like I had a couple of really bad rounds, but the last round before we started recording the podcast, I got 0, and I was like that moment of like, I don't care, I just won the game.
Yeah.
Like even though I didn't win the game, I'm like, I felt like I won the game. I'm like,
And finally, one thing that should absolutely be some sort of scale in a card game is the amount of is the crap talk factor that can come from kids when playing this game.
Oh, kids can be
If
brutal.
a kid can turn around to a parent and say, "I didn't pick up any points that round, Dad. How many points did you pick up?" There has to be some sort of mark. There has to be some sort of tick added to a game. It's like, yep, my kid was able to do
if
that.
a kid can smack talk, that's
Yeah.
that's a good moment.
Yeah.
My kid's an asshole. Tick box. Of
Anyway, so that was our gateway game of the week, which was 6 Nimpt, or Take 6, or Row 6, whatever the equivalent that you see. So, look, if you get a chance to get it, I would highly recommend
I think I picked this
getting
up.
it. Can you...
The next day after I played it with you, Damien, I was in a bookshop in the city. It wasn't even a board game shop, and I bought this game.
Oh, I remember that. You messaged me, yeah.
I've just got to mention 2 things. One, the designer is Wolfgang Kramer. I would feel bad if I didn't actually mention the designer. Also, it was nominated for the Spiel des Jahres in 1994. There it is.
Spiel
Although
des
it doesn't actually have the little icon. It was before they had that. It's just written.
You know, because
back
they
in.
don't need it. They don't need it
Yeah.
at the front. You know,
Yeah.
this sells.
Although
It's just taking up
It
valuable
does,
space.
it does have a good like little bar chart of like family to expert. Oh, it's a midway. Oh,
I
is
feel
this
like
chance
more
to
games-
strategy? Or is
Yeah.
this calm
Yeah.
to turbulent? It's pretty calm. I don't know if it's that calm.
Because there's no
turbulent.
like movie
Right.
rating system with board games or anything like that.
That's pretty good. Anyway, so we're gonna move on to our discussion topic for tonight as we in the final 20-25 minutes or so, and we wanted to have a chat tonight with the title being about big box games, because there is a new trend which we came off last week talking about with Kickstarter and the idea of plastic in Kickstarters and stuff. And we talked about this concept of big box games, but we realized we didn't really talk about what those are. And a lot of people, you know, when they see or hear about board games, they think a lot of the time think about their childhood with Monopoly and things and think, well, that's a big game.
I had a big box.
I had a big box,
Yeah.
but there's actually and a lot of people can actually be very intimidated by the idea of, well, a big box means more time, more rules, and we wanted to have a chat about those, like about some of the games that we enjoy, what games we would classify, what we think about those. So, look, I'm going to open up the floor to you guys to start with about, you know, well, let's start with the obvious. When we talk about big box games, obviously we're talking about games that come in a big box, but what does that actually constitute?
Are we
for the
though?
game?
That's the point. Is it just in the big box?
Well, and that's the thing, which is what are we talking about when we talk about big box games here? Are we talking about games that are
How about
actually
this?
complex, or are we talking about games that actually contain
Let's
more than
give a
1
dot point each
more than 1.5
as to what a big box game would be. Right?
Okay.
You just get one to start the conversation off.
All right, I'll go first because I've already got mine in my head. The box does not fit in a standard 1x1 calyx.
Oh my
You and your
god!
calyx.
I don't have a calyx. I don't have that problem.
Yeah,
I don't think you could live with yourself if you had one.
la-di-da, mister. I built my own board gaming shelves in my room.
You know what? Fuck it. I did.
Nice.
All right, well,
They look great. They look fantastic.
I would think that, like...
Do you contract out is my question.
I can absolutely consult, and that's about it.
You don't want to ask his rate, though. That's
Yeah.
you
Fair.
All right, but I think something that's like is not a standard box size. I think is something that would be. I know that's very surface level and very But Damien, I'm going to ask you, what is your dot point?
My idea of a big box game would be something a little more sort of conventional in the Queen's Game stuff. So Queen's Game are a German-based publisher, and they are. They were previously famous for doing big box editions of certain games. So one I have at home is Alhambra Big Box. They've also done Lancaster Big Box, Kingdom Builder Big Box, and essentially what these are is it's the game with all the expansions that ever came out with that game in one box.
So like I saw that big
Carcassonne.
Carcassonne Big Box is
and
another
I saw
one.
like the Everdell one that came out.
I could
earlier
do
this
with the
year.
Dune Imperium big box right now. I
That's
think.
what I mean. So in my mind, that's when someone says big box, that's where my mind goes.
Mm-hmm.
And the obvious benefits are, well, you get everything released for the game. The immediate negative is you literally get the game and the kitchen sink and everything that came with it and the price tag that comes with it as well. And it really comes down to whether or not you really
If you
were a
actually
fan
enjoy
of the
the
game.
game.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Matt, I will say, Carcassonne Big Box, fantastic. Rate that highly. But there have been big box games that we have it. We still only play the base. It's like, what are we doing with all this other stuff? It's like, that's
Matt,
fine.
we'll go to you.
Mine was that's thrown me for a 6 because you're right that fits the definition. But in my mind, I go to 2-hour plays and more complex rule structures, and more strategy based games, I suppose.
So, but the game there isn't physically heavy. It's not physically big. It's just big to play. It feels
that's
big
right.
to play. You feel drained after you finish playing a game like that.
Not necessarily drained, but it's in my mind when you say big box game, I'm thinking, okay, I've got to set aside an evening to play this thing. It's not a bring it to the
it's not an
table
hour.
and all right, we've taught you in 5 minutes, let's go. Like it's let's have 20 minutes of setup and explaining the bits and
20 minutes?
all of the complexity.
That's not a big box game.
No,
Well, what was our On Mars teach? That was an hour.
So we played a game called On Mars, which I absolutely love. And after I played one game of that, I was like, right, Terraforming Mars, you got to go. I need to get On Mars in my collection at some point. But
an hour to teach
it
you.
was an hour, over an hour to teach.
How do you remember the things you
That's
learned
the thing.
in the first 10 minutes of
I
the learn?
dived into that game, Matt, and I was like, my first turn, what does this do again?
Yeah.
What happens if I go there?
Yeah.
But then after it took me, literally fumbled my way through for like 2-3 hours. The guys were helping me. I played a second game of it. Everything clicked. Really
Were you
bloody
all
enjoyed it.
learning for the first time?
No, thankfully not.
I was teaching
Wow.
terribly.
That was on
No, but,
Tabletop
like, is it
Simulator
that
during
big a
lockdown.
game?
Hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a tough teach as well because
It
it was
was.
on TTS. We're all in lockdown. I was literally growing my hair. I'd spent all day homeschooling kids. It was rough.
But that was a great night. Glad we did it. And yeah, I can't wait to play more of that one.
But what is your definition? What's your 1 point for a big box game? When you think big box, what do you think?
I think big box is it could be an event game like TI. But
Twilight Imperium.
yeah, Twilight Imperium. I'm sure if you've heard this podcast, you've heard of that game. Yeah, for me, I'd say something that is going to set aside more than one evening, such as
More than one evening?
Yeah, such as your Gloom or your Frost or a rolling thing in any sort of way like that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we've got a couple of really interesting things around here. Like,
There's some very different
because-
definitions
they're all
there.
Because
different.
like Matt, you think, obviously like
Not that anyone's wrong.
No.
I want to say that out. Like, I think everyone's right, but that's not my immediate go-to.
Yeah.
But see, it's weird because the board gaming as an entity has a definition of big box, which Damien has said, right? Big box tends to be this is the definitive all-in edition of the game
collector's
that's come
edition.
out.
Yeah.
But the nomenclature that we all kind of talk about, like it's like it can be contextual. It was like, tonight we're going to play some big box games. It's like, what does that mean? Well, we could be playing some Terraforming Mars. That's actually not a big box. It's actually a standard sort of size box that fits into your shelf.
No,
but the game
it's a big box now.
Yeah, now it is. They've made it a big box, didn't they?
Well, but still,
They want to shoot that onto
but
Mars
still,
at some
that big
point.
box, I think, is designed to fit directly into a one by one.
No, it's not.
Are you
That's
sure?
going on the next rover they put on
I
Mars.
don't know. It looks pretty. But
They're
that,
building the rover out of the
That's right. That's
pretty
right.
robust
Yeah,
stuff.
that's the next expansion.
yeah, but it's a really interesting thing because we obviously, we are,
We're gamers.
We are gamers and we're well entrenched into this hobby. So like we look at these sort of games and I could say to I could just say we're going to play this game tonight and we're going to play it has a bit of this and a bit of that. It's this kind of theme and everyone goes, cool. I don't care what the rest is. I know we're going to play that game. But for a lot of people who may be listening to this podcast, they may be hearing the idea of like, a big box game. And they hear Matt go, well, it's going to be a whole evening. Or Ralph go, this is going to be multiple days.
multiple evenings.
Yeah.
multiple evenings. And I'm like, and that can be very intimidating for a lot of people. And so I guess something that I want to ask you guys is to have a think about, what sort of games would you classify as a big box game that you'd like to recommend to people, for different reasons, and have a think about, potentially we can think about games that may be easier to get in. I think, Damo, you've got one that you were talking about that had a lot of stuff before the podcast, which I think could be a good step. but I want everyone else to have a think about it as well. So, Damo, do you remember the game that you said that was kind of big box that had a lot of stuff? I don't know if you classified it. Super Fantasy Brawl.
Okay, yeah, so
that is not a big box game.
But the amount of plastic that it comes with...
Mate, that is not a big box game.
All right, so
How much shelf space does it take, Ralph?
It takes less than Treasure Island.
yeah, it does actually. It does. All right, so just so the listeners know, so rather if they haven't heard, Super Fantasy Brawl is a head-to-head
One-on-one.
Yeah,
Yeah, combat.
It's a 3 versus 3 combat game where you play cards to move your figurines, attack and control areas. And
But it's just
things
one
like
player
that.
versus one player.
It is,
Yeah.
yes. What makes it
It's not a big box
You've
game.
backed
But,
into
I'm going to put this.
It's backed him into a corner here.
no. It's because
but if you look at the shelf
there are
space, it
factors.
has...
Yeah, it does. It does have a large footprint.
But
on
it
the
doesn't
shelf.
have to.
Doesn't have to, but it is a simple game. Okay, it is a
Yep.
it is a medium weight game at most.
Yep, I agree.
The rules are not brilliant, but in the publisher's defense, they were translated directly from French, so it's okay. So it's
Baguette? Where's the baguette
Yeah.
mini?
Yeah.
ChatGPT was still on version 2 at that time.
Exactly right.
It was a bit behind.
And it's not me taking a shot at them, but it's
No,
it's
it's
known
fair.
it's a known fact that the rules went through a few editions, or a few edits, I should say. But the game itself, I personally would not consider it a big box game. Yes, it comes with a bunch of minis. Yes,
It takes a lot of space.
yes, it takes a lot
the
of
version
space on
you
the
have.
shelf.
Yeah.
But by that sense, if you're going to say that a game plus all the extra things that come into it are a big box, to use your example, Neeber, Terraforming Mars is therefore a big box game.
No, and I agree with you. The reason why I brought up Super Fantasy...
I'm loving that we now have to classify what type of big box we're actually talking
exactly,
about.
but that's why I brought it up, which is that I know, in my mind, I would go, that's not a big box game, right? Super Fantasy Brawl, I know it's not. But when you look at it on a shelf space, with the amount of minis that it does come with if you have the Kickstarter version, there are people who would look at that and go...
That's fair.
It's got like 4 or 5 boxes. I don't know,
Immediately, they're
that's
going to
not what it-
think of Warhammer or something when they see all those
Maybe.
minis and stuff.
And that's the point that I'm bringing up, which is that, like, obviously, big box potentially to people can actually be very intimidating just from the number of boxes and the size of said box that you see in front of you. I'm just saying that...
Or
with
even
those,
just the sheer amount of plastic you get.
yeah, exactly right.
yeah,
Which is
yeah.
a game, but actually a game like Super Fantasy Brawl is actually a very simple, very easy to get into. It's like, okay, it's actually, you don't use it all at once. You get to pick some stuff, you get some cool little minis, but at first glance, a lot of people may not necessarily know that. Matt, I know, like, what have you thought about the games that, the big box, or like...
Well, after listening to all the definitions, I think my one that I'd recommend would be Charterstone, which we haven't played in ages. But I remember we started the Charterstone experience.
Ooh, a legacy campaign game.
Legacy game, yeah, because that was multiple events. I loved that. That was my first Legacy game. We didn't finish it either because the group just fizzled out.
But we do have we did buy the recharge pack and it's ready to go. So
Yeah, that would be
okay.
my recommendation. I had such great time with it, and it's such a nice story that just opens up in front of you, and you just keep developing it.
Yeah, nice.
it's really interesting because that box, though, again, is not
No, it's not a very
big box
big
game.
package.
But this is why it's really cool and why I love this hobby is because you can actually have so many of these different games that are completely, different, but the experience that they give you out of the box can make it feel like a big box game. Like, it's kind of almost like we use the comparison to a movie. Like this is the box office, a box office blockbuster or something like that.
It's
right?
like having every James Bond film.
Yeah, exactly right. Like, or a Marvel movie. Like, when you
Yeah.
play this game, it feel like, to go with you, Ralph, it feels like an event. Like, even though the box itself may not actually be huge, the time that we spend playing that game, like, could feel like a big box game.
I'd say, like, just your question of, like, how, should you go into a big box game? I would say not straight away. You should transition into a big box game. Like, you don't just go to the store and buy the Carcassonne big box because it's there. You will buy the small one first, try it out, and then commit to a big box game. You don't just dive in blind.
Yeah, I think the perfect example is one that you are about to start with the lovely Tina. You've convinced her to play a game of Paws of the Line. What is it?
It's Gloomhaven with cats.
The Gloomhaven with cats. Matt's not happy about that.
All right, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
But yeah, Jaws of the Lion with Tina as the intro to this whole Gloomhaven.
Yeah, because there was the night that Damien and I actually started our Frosthaven campaign. I saw Tina was up for a board game, and I felt so bad to go, sorry, sweetie. Damien and I are playing this game tonight. We've been looking forward to this one for a very long time. We're ready to dive in tonight. The stars have aligned. The planets are together. Terraforming Mars is on the planet. Perfect night for it. So I felt really bad that night in particular. And I was like, you know what? Damien was kind enough to lend me his Jaws of the Lion game. And I pitched it to her last night and showed her a bit of the rules, and we'll play that at some point. So I told her there's no commitment to that. I didn't want it to be like, yes, you're locked in for 20 games of this or whatever it is. Just we'll ease into it. The game really takes 5 missions, and then the tutorial's over, and then we really dive into it. But if it's not your thing, that's fine. So I'll just play through it on my own, and I'm okay with that. But I saw she was curious about it, and Gloomhaven is a part of my life that I really enjoy, and I just want to show everyone that. So yeah. I
mean, look, there's something as well that I just kind of want to mention very quickly, which is I remember when we played Endless Winter, and the one at your house.
Endless Winter, no, isn't that the that's the zombie game?
No.
Yeah, you're thinking of Paleo Americans.
Yes, but isn't it called Endless Winter?
It's called Endless. What's the one I'm thinking about?
I don't know.
You're thinking of
It's the zombie one where there's the zombies go to the door and you have an outpost. What's that called? It's narrative driven.
Yeah,
the game I'm talking about. It's on the tip of my tongue. I just can't. It's like a grey box.
Come to me.
If you know what the game is, please put it into the comments so we can.
We played it a bit.
Yeah.
But with Endless Winter, the game itself, we played the base game, and it literally had another 5 modules we could have added to the game inside of that box. And I literally was looking at it going, oh, I don't know if I want to add anything more into this game. And that to me was the big box experience, which is that it had a table presence, it had this this kind of almost intimidating feeling of when I was looking at the bits of plastic in the box, I'm like, I don't want to dip my hand in there in case it's a mimic who just chomps my hand off and or something along those lines. It almost had that intimidating feeling of, to start this game and I'm well into the hobby and I love games, but I'm also oh man, I don't know if I want to.
Well, you got to be in the right headspace to learn those games, especially if you haven't watched a video beforehand or anything like that. You need to be in the right headspace. If I'm tired, I don't want to learn a game. Just put Dune Imperium. We'll have a good time. That means a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that, I think we're going to start to wrap up here the podcast.
What officially is a big box game? We've gone through our opinions.
Yeah.
What's the definition? You can't just...
So a big box game is something that doesn't fit into a standard calyx. That
is this podcast actually sponsored by IKEA? Because you've said Calyx 8
It has. He really has. Their sales have gone up. He's got shares.
Usually they get one mention.
Hit me up at contact@boardgamegateway.com if you would like to sponsor the show.
Our domain is now ikea.com.
There'll be 8 boxes on the doorstep.
You laugh at
build your own sauna, Nee.
Board Game Gateway at
ikea.com. You laugh at me
ikea.com.
now, but when I give us all IKEA vouchers, you'll become grown.
We have all this IKEA swag now.
If Alan Keys just start appearing in future episodes on the table, you know what's going on.
Yeah. No, I'd still... Yeah, what is the actual definition? Is there one?
Yeah.
Get a bigger calyx.
Physically big box or possibly collector's edition amalgamation of all the expansions or possibly...
Well, I think it's an open definition, right? It's really up to you as a person. I've played a lot of...
it really does depend where you are in your journey on board games as well.
100%.
Yeah. And it also depends on things that you might that you are interested in. I would say that anyone who has played Carcassonne and really enjoyed it, get the big box. I think it is one of the best big box experiences out there. Same for Alhambra. I think the first couple extra expansions for Alhambra.
Yeah.
So if you can get the big box, absolutely do it. But even so, is if you want to go, if you want to look at the alternate views or the other views, I should say, on big box games, if the theme catches you, I say do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Enjoy the hobby.
Ark Nova, so many people jumped in on that. That shot to the top 100 range. That's a big box.
That's like
Heaps
yes.
of people dived into that.
Yeah,
game.
and I've met people who were not hobby gamers and they own the game, and that is a heavy game to jump in.
Yeah. There's a lot of mechanics in there.
But yeah, and I say all the power to them because hey, it was a theme that grabbed them and they did it. It's awesome.
Like Wingspan probably opened up a lot of people to bigger board games as well.
Which is now a big box game.
Oh, is it?
You should see the storage box for
It's
it.
got like 3 different expansions, and now like to actually have all 3 of them in one, it is massive.
Oh wow! You actually have to take the tree down that the birds live in just to just to have the game.
Multiple trees were harmed in the making of this box.
This tree lost its home. Build it another one with these cards.
Okay, so with that, we're going to wrap up the podcast for this evening. And I would first like to thank Damien. I'd like to thank you for joining us here this evening. It's lovely to have you. I want to have you back on in future episodes. If you'll come back.
Absolutely, this was great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that we didn't scare him off. I mean, I know we played games together, but who knows? When we got behind the mic, anything could have happened.
Oh, it did.
Exactly right. So if you enjoyed what you were listening to this evening, please go and check out our website, www.boardgamegateway.com. Go to our YouTube channel. You can type in @BGGateway to find all of our videos. I actually just posted our first YouTube short today. So it's a 1-minute little explanation on why you should be playing the game No Thanks, which we've talked about in a previous podcast. I was actually quite happy with it. Ralph has got a couple more articles in the pipeline, which are going to be coming out. And we've also got a few more things that we've got looking forward to get content-wise. So I'd just like to thank all of you for listening. Until next time, on behalf of myself, Ralph, Matt, and Damo, we'll see you next time.
And if you know the name of that zombie game I can't quite grab, please let me know. It's driving me nuts.
Dead of Winter?
Dead of Winter. There we go.
I'm good. I'm good. All right, bye. I'll talk to you.
It always comes in clutch, doesn't it?
I can't start a podcast, but I can end a podcast.